The first sign that something was wrong wasn't the sputtering of my engine or the plume of smoke billowing from under the hood. It was the text message that never came. Running late. Meeting ran long. Be home soon. After 8 years of marriage to Daniel, I knew his patterns. The check-in text was as reliable as his Windsor knot and his morning coffee ritual. But today, nothing. I was less than 2 miles from our house in the Chicago suburbs when my Volvo gave up the fight. The dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree before the car jerked and died completely, forcing me to coast to the shoulder of Lakeside Drive. Rain pelted the windshield, blurring the world outside into watercolor smudges. I tried the ignition again. Nothing. Perfect, I muttered, reaching for my phone. I'd call Daniel to come get me. He should be home by now anyway. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. An uneasy feeling crawled up my spine as I dialed our roadside assistance service. The woman on the phone was sympathetic but not helpful. I'm sorry, Ms. Reeves, but with this storm, all our techs are backed up. We're looking at a minimum 2-hour wait. I thanked her and hung up, staring through the rain-streaked windshield at the neighborhood around me. I wasn't far from home, maybe a 15-minute walk in this weather. And I was on Hawthorne Street, just a few blocks from the Continental, that new upscale hotel and restaurant where Daniel and I had celebrated our anniversary last month. I could wait there, have a coffee or glass of wine, and try Daniel again. I grabbed my purse, pulled my raincoat tight around me, and stepped out into the downpour. By the time I reached the hotel's gleaming entrance, my hair was plastered to my face, and my shoes were soaked through. The warmth of the lobby enveloped me as I stepped inside, shaking off raindrops. The Continental was trying hard to be the sophisticated establishment this upper-middle-class suburb had always lacked. All marble surfaces, modern art, and staff in crisp uniforms. I headed toward the restaurant bar, fishing my phone for my purse to try Daniel again. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought I was mistaken. The man had Daniel's height, his salt and pepper hair, the slight stoop of his shoulders, but surely it couldn't be him. This man had his arm around a woman I'd never seen before, guiding her toward the elevator bank. I froze mid-step. The woman was striking, tall and willowy, with dark hair cascading down her back. She wore a fitted red dress that hugged every curve. As they waited for the elevator, she leaned into him, whispering something that made him throw his head back and laugh. It was a laugh I knew intimately. The elevator arrived. They stepped inside. Just before the doors closed, the man turned slightly, and there was no mistaking him. My husband. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering to the marble floor. The bartender was watching me with concern. I'd been sitting at the bar for nearly an hour, nursing a glass of Cabernet I couldn't taste. My mind replayed the image of Daniel and that woman on an infinite loop. "Ma'am, are you okay?" the bartender asked, a young man with kind eyes and a sleeve of tattoos peeking out from his uniform. My voice caught. What could I say? I just saw my husband go upstairs with another woman. My car broke down and brought me here to witness my life breaking down too. I'm fine. Just waiting out the storm. He nodded, unconvinced, and moved away to serve another customer. I stared at my reflection in the mirrored backsplash behind the bar. Eliza Reeves, 36, clinical psychologist. The irony wasn't lost on me. I helped people navigate their emotional crises every day, yet here I was, completely blindsided by my own. I thought about the last few months. Had there been signs? Daniel had been working later, traveling more for his consulting firm. There had been a distance growing between us, emotional at first, then physical. When was the last time he'd really kissed me, made love to me, without seeming distracted? I'd attributed it to work stress, to the miscarriage we'd suffered last year. We were still healing, I thought. We were giving each other space. Space for what? For him to find someone else? My phone vibrated on the bar top. A text from Daniel. Got held up at work. Grabbing dinner with Jeffries about the Singapore project. Don't wait up. My hands shook as I read the message twice, 3 times. The lie was so casual, so effortless. How many other lies had I believed? I couldn't stay here. I couldn't risk seeing them come down together. I paid my bill and stepped outside. The rain had stopped, leaving the world with that fresh wash smell and a chill in the early evening air. Instead of walking home, I headed back to my car. I needed time to think, to plan. The tow truck would come eventually. As I walked, I called my best friend, Mara. "Liz, what's up?" Her voice was a lifeline to normalcy. "My car broke down," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And I just saw Daniel go up to a hotel room with another woman." "What?" The shock in her voice mirrored my own. "Are you sure it was him?" "Positive." "Where are you?" "I'm coming to get you. I'm heading back to my car on Lakeside." "But Mara?" I hesitated. "Don't come yet. I need to figure out what I'm going to do." "Liz, you shouldn't be alone right now. I'm a big girl. And I'm a therapist, remember? I counsel people through crises every day." "This is different," she insisted. "This is you." "I know." I reached my car and leaned against it, looking back toward the Continental. Its windows glowed in the dusk like knowing eyes. "I'll call you back in a bit. I promise." I hung up before she could protest further. Sitting in my dead car, I pulled up my photos. Daniel and me in Cabo last winter. Daniel and my parents for Christmas. Daniel asleep on the couch with our cat, Winston, curled on his chest. 8 years of marriage. 3 years of dating before that. We'd met in graduate school. He was getting his MBA while I was working on my doctorate in psychology. He'd been charming, intelligent, ambitious. I'd fallen for his quiet confidence, the way he seemed to know exactly what he wanted and how to get it. What did he want now? Who was she? As if in answer to my unspoken questions, my phone lit up with another text from Daniel. "Dinner running later than expected. Might crash at Jeff's place downtown since we have an early meeting. Sorry, babe. Love you." A strange calm settled over me. In all our years together, I'd never once checked Daniel's phone or email. I'd never felt the need. We trusted each other, or so I thought. But now, sitting in my broken-down car as night fell, I realized how much of that trust had been blind faith. The roadside assistance truck finally arrived. As the technician examined my car, he confirmed what I already suspected. "Blown head gasket," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "She's not going anywhere tonight. Can you tow it to Pearson's garage on Oak Street?" I asked. "Sure thing. Need a ride home?" I hesitated. Home was the last place I wanted to be right now. "Actually, could you drop me at the Continental Hotel? I have someone meeting me there." I didn't go back to the bar. Instead, I took the elevator to the 6th floor. I didn't know which room they were in, but I didn't plan on knocking on doors. I just needed to be closer, to make it more real somehow. The hallway was quiet, elegant, plush carpet that muffled my footsteps, tasteful artwork on the walls. I walked slowly, listening for voices, for any sign of my husband and his companion. Nothing. My phone buzzed. "Mara again. I'm coming to get you," she texted. Which entrance of the hotel? I hadn't told her I was back at the Continental, but Mara knew me too well. I texted back. "Main entrance. 15 minutes. Instead of taking the elevator back down, I descended via the stairs. My legs felt wooden, my movements automatic. In the lobby, I approached the front desk. A young woman with a sleek ponytail and perfect makeup smiled at me. "Can I help you?" "My husband is staying here," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "Daniel Reeves. He forgot his medication, and I need to bring it to him." Her fingers tapped at the keyboard. "I'm sorry, we don't have a Daniel Reeves registered with us." "Of course not. He wouldn't use his real name." "My mistake," I said, turning away. Then a thought struck me. Actually, he might be with a colleague. Tall woman, dark hair, red dress? They would have checked in a couple of hours ago. The receptionist's smile became fixed. "I'm afraid I can't provide information about our guests, ma'am." But something flickered in her eyes, recognition. She knew exactly who I was talking about. "Thank you anyway," I said and walked toward the main entrance to wait for Mara. She arrived in her Subaru, concern etched on her face. Mara had been my roommate in college, and despite our different life paths, she was a freelance graphic designer with 2 young children. We'd remained inseparable. "Get in," she said through the open window. "You're staying with me tonight." I slid into the passenger seat, grateful for her take-charge attitude when my own decision-making abilities seemed to have short-circuited. "Have you talked to him?" she asked as we pulled away from the curb. He texted. Said he was having dinner with Jeff Jeffries and might stay at his place downtown. That lying piece of... I know. I cut her off, not ready to hear Daniel vilified, even though he deserved it. I just can't believe this is happening. What are you going to do? I stared out the window at the passing streetlights. I don't know yet, but I need more information. What kind of information? You saw him, Liz, with another woman going to a hotel room. What more do you need? I need to know how long, who she is, if this is serious. The word felt like broken glass in my mouth. Mara glanced at me, her expression softening. Do you think knowing those things will make it hurt less? No, I admitted. But I need to understand what I'm dealing with before I decide what to do next. We drove in silence for a while. When we reached her cozy, split-level home, her husband Ryan greeted us at the door, clearly having been briefed on the situation. He gave me a quick hug and made himself scarce, taking their children upstairs to bed. Mara opened a bottle of wine and poured 2 generous glasses. Okay, she said, settling beside me on the couch. Detective mode. What do we know? I took a sip of wine. Not much. Just what I saw. Start with his phone. Have you noticed him being protective of it lately? I thought about it. Yes. He used to leave it anywhere on the counter, the coffee table. Now it's always in his pocket or face down. Work schedule changes? More late nights, more business dinners. I made air quotes with my fingers. Unexplained expenses? I wouldn't know. Daniel handles all our finances. Another realization hit me. God, Mara, I don't even know if we're okay financially. What if he's been spending our money on her? One crisis at a time, she said firmly. First, we confirm the affair. Then we figure out the rest. How do we confirm it? Follow him? Hire a private investigator? Mara reached for her laptop. We start with what we know. The woman. Red dress, dark hair. Let's see if we can figure out who she is. She opened Daniel's LinkedIn profile. I knew most of his colleagues, at least I thought I did. We scrolled through his connections, looking for someone who matched the woman I'd seen. Wait, I said suddenly, pointing at the screen. Her. The profile photo showed a striking woman with dark hair and sharp eyes. Vanessa Mercer, senior management consultant at Axion Partners, Daniel's firm. It says she joined Axion 8 months ago, Mara noted. I remembered Daniel mentioning a new team member around that time. He'd been assigned to mentor her, help her transition to the firm. My stomach clenched. Let's check her Instagram, Mara suggested, typing the name into the search bar. Vanessa's profile was public. Recent photos showed her at industry events, hiking in what looked like Colorado, and having drinks with friends. I scanned the images, looking for any sign of Daniel, but there was nothing obvious. Then I noticed a pattern. In several photos taken in what appeared to be hotel bars or restaurants, there was a glass of scotch visible on the table, Daniel's drink of choice. The man himself was never in frame, but I'd bet anything he was just out of shot. She's careful, I murmured. Look at this, Mara said, pointing to a photo from 3 weeks ago. Vanessa was on a boat, the Chicago skyline behind her. The caption read, "Nothing better than a sunset cruise with the right company. Hashtag blessed, hashtag secret joys." The right company. Secret joys. I stood up abruptly, needing to move. 3 weeks ago, Daniel said he was at a client dinner. He came home late, smelling like the lake. Liz, Mara began, but I cut her off. I need to see his emails, his texts. I need to know how deep this goes. And then what? The question hung in the air between us. What would I do with the confirmation of my husband's betrayal? Leave him? Try to save our marriage? I didn't know. One step at a time, I said, echoing her earlier sentiment. First, we confirm. Then I decide what comes next. I reached for my phone, a plan forming. I need to go home.
Now?
It's almost midnight.
Exactly.
Daniel thinks I'm at home, unaware. If I show up at Jeff's looking for him, he won't be there, Mara finished my thought. Precisely. And then I'll have caught him in the lie. It's a starting point. I'll drive you, she said, reaching for her keys.
No.
I put my hand on hers. I need to do this myself. Can I borrow your car? She looked uncertain but finally nodded. Be careful, Liz. And call me the second you need anything. As I drove toward our home in Mara's Subaru, my mind raced. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that there was some explanation for what I'd seen. But the rational part of me knew better. The signs had been there. I just hadn't wanted to see them. Our house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. I sat in the car for a moment, steeling myself. This was the home Daniel and I had bought together 4 years ago, full of dreams about the family we'd built here. The family that hadn't materialized. Inside, Winston greeted me with an indignant meow, upset about his delayed dinner. I fed him mechanically, then moved through the house like a ghost, seeing everything with new eyes. The wedding photos on the wall, Daniel's reading glasses on the side table, his coffee mug in the sink. I went to our home office and turned on his computer. Daniel had always been careless with passwords, using variations of the same few for everything. I tried the most common one and the screen unlocked. His email opened automatically. Most of it was work-related, nothing suspicious at first glance. I searched for Vanessa. Dozens of emails appeared, most with mundane subject lines about projects and clients. I opened the most recent one. Singapore proposal edits seemed innocent enough, but the body of the email was anything but. Last night was perfect. Can't wait for our weekend away. I've booked the suite at the Peninsula. The timestamp was from this morning. This weekend. He told me he was flying to New York on Friday for a client meeting. Another lie. I kept searching, finding more exchanges, some explicit, others with coded language that was clearly meant to hide their relationship. The earliest email dated back to 6 months ago. 6 months of deception. I forwarded the most damning emails to my account, then closed the computer. I felt oddly calm, like I was watching myself from a distance. Next, I went to our bedroom and opened Daniel's closet. His suitcase was gone. He'd taken it to work this morning for his supposed trip tomorrow. I started going through his drawers, not sure what I was looking for until I found it. A small jewelry box hidden beneath his socks. Inside was a pair of sapphire earrings I'd never seen before. Expensive ones. My birthday was last month. He'd given me a blender. I sat on the edge of our bed, the earrings glinting in my palm. Everything was falling into place. The late nights, the distraction, the emotional distance. It wasn't work stress or grief over our lost baby. It was her, Vanessa. I returned the earrings to their hiding place and left the bedroom. In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of water and leaned against the counter, considering my options. I could wait for Daniel to come home tomorrow, confront him with what I knew. I could pack my bags and be gone before he returned. I could call him right now, demand an explanation. None of those options felt right. I needed something more, fitting for the situation. Something that matched the magnitude of his betrayal. My gaze fell on the calendar hanging on our refrigerator. This Friday, tomorrow, was circled in red. NYC. It read in my handwriting. Beside it, I'd written dinner with Naomi. Naomi, my colleague at the clinic, had invited me to dinner weeks ago. I'd almost forgotten. A plan began to form. Daniel thought he was taking Vanessa to the Peninsula this weekend. He didn't expect me to know, or to be anywhere but home, waiting faithfully for his return. He was in for a surprise. Are you sure about this? Mara asked for the 3rd time as she helped me pack a small overnight bag the next morning. I'd spent the night at her house after all, not wanting to sleep in the bed I shared with Daniel. Completely sure, I replied, folding a black dress into the bag. He expects me to be home alone all weekend while he's supposedly in New York. Instead, I'll be at the Peninsula, watching him check in with her. And then what? You confront them in the lobby? Make a scene? I zipped the bag closed. I don't know yet, but I want to see his face when he realizes I know. I want to see if he even hesitates before checking in with her, if there's any guilt at all. Liz, this sounds like something from a movie, not real life. Well, my real life turned into a movie yesterday when my car broke down and I saw my husband with another woman. My voice cracked slightly, the first sign of the emotion I'd been suppressing. I need to do this, Mara. I need to see it with my own eyes completely, so there's no room for doubt or denial. She sighed but nodded.
Okay.
But I'm staying close by. You call me if you need anything, and I mean anything. I will, I promised, hugging her tightly. My car was still at the garage, so Mara drove me home to get a few more things, and then to my office. I had patients scheduled until 4 p.m., and I wouldn't cancel on them, crisis or no crisis. My professional ethics wouldn't allow it. Somehow, I made it through the day. I listened to my patients' problems, offered guidance, appeared completely present, all while my own life was imploding. The irony wasn't lost on me. During my lunch break, I made a reservation at the Peninsula for one night. It was extravagant, especially given the uncertainty of my financial situation, but I needed to be there. Daniel texted around 2 p.m., about to board for NYC. Talk tomorrow? Love you. I stared at the message, at those two words that now seemed so hollow. Love you. Did he? Had he ever? I didn't respond. After my last session, I changed into the black dress I'd brought, sleek, simple, elegant, and applied fresh makeup. Looking in the mirror of my office bathroom, I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back at me looked poised, determined. Inside, I felt like I was hanging by a thread. Naomi knocked on my door at 5:30. Ready for dinner? She asked, then paused, looking me over. Wow, you look amazing. Special occasion. You could say that, I replied vaguely. Listen, can I meet you at the restaurant? There's something I need to do first. She agreed, and I caught a taxi to the Peninsula. The hotel was even more luxurious than the Continental, old Chicago money rather than new suburban wealth. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, staff that moved with practiced discretion. At the reception desk, I checked in with a credit card Daniel didn't know about, one I kept for emergencies. This certainly qualified. Will anyone be joining you, Mrs. Reeves? The receptionist asked pleasantly. No, I said. I'm here on my own. My room was on the 9th floor, with a view of Michigan Avenue. I set down my bag and called room service for a glass of wine. Then I settled in to wait. Daniel and Vanessa would likely arrive after dinner, around 8 or 9 p.m. I had time to gather my thoughts, to prepare for what would come next. The wine arrived, and I sipped it slowly, staring out at the city lights. Chicago had been our home for over a decade. We'd built our lives here, our careers, our social circle. If I left Daniel, would I stay? Could I bear to remain in the same city, possibly running into him and Vanessa at restaurants or events? My phone rang, Mara checking in. I assured her I was fine, that I'd call when there was news. At 7:30, I went down to the lobby and found a discreet seat in the lounge area with a clear view of the front desk. I ordered another glass of wine and a small plate of food I couldn't taste and settled in to watch. The minutes ticked by. Couples came and went. Business travelers checked in, looking tired. A wedding party passed through in a flurry of laughter and champagne flutes. At 8:45, I saw them. Daniel walked through the revolving door first, pulling a small suitcase, the one from our closet. Vanessa followed, even more striking than I remembered, in a simple black jumpsuit, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. They didn't touch as they approached the front desk, maintaining a professional distance in public. But I saw the way his eyes lingered on her, the slight smile that played at the corners of her mouth. There was an intimacy between them that was unmistakable. Daniel spoke to the receptionist, who typed something into the computer and then handed over a key card. He thanked her, and then he and Vanessa moved toward the elevator bank. They were here, in the same hotel as me, about to spend the night together while I was supposed to be home alone, oblivious. Before I could think better of it, I stood and walked directly toward them. Daniel had his back to me, saying something to Vanessa that made her laugh. That same laugh I'd heard at the Continental. Daniel, He froze at the sound of my voice, then turned slowly. The color drained from his face. Eliza? His voice was barely audible. What are you doing here? I finished for him. I could ask you the same thing. Aren't you supposed to be in New York? Vanessa looked between us, realization dawning in her eyes. Daniel, she said uncertainly. Vanessa, I presume, I said, extending my hand to her. I'm Eliza Reeves, Daniel's wife. To her credit, she didn't try to pretend she didn't know who I was. She took my hand briefly, her skin cool against mine. How did you? Daniel began, but I cut him off again. My car broke down near the Continental yesterday, I said calmly. I saw you together. And then I found the emails. And the earrings. Sapphire is her birthstone, I'm guessing? Not mine. People were starting to look our way. Daniel glanced around nervously. Eliza, please. Let's not do this here. Where would you prefer to do it, Daniel? In our home? The home you've been lying to me in for months? Or maybe upstairs in the room you just booked for you and your colleague? Vanessa had the decency to look uncomfortable. I should go, she murmured. No, stay, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice remained. You're as much a part of this as he is. I turned back to Daniel. 6 months, from what I can tell. Is that right? 6 months of lying to my face every day. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache despite everything. It's not what you think, Liz. Really? Because I think you're having an affair with this woman. I think you've been lying to me about work trips and late meetings. I think you bought her expensive jewelry while giving me kitchen appliances. Please, tell me what part of that I've misunderstood. We should talk privately, he insisted, reaching for my arm. I stepped back, evading his touch.
No.
I'm done with privacy. I'm done with secrets. You didn't seem concerned about privacy when you were emailing her from our home, when you were taking her on boat cruises and planning weekends away. A small crowd had gathered now, hotel guests and staff, watching our drama unfold with poorly disguised interest. Daniel's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. This is childish, Eliza. You're making a scene. Am I? I'm not the one who shattered our marriage. I'm not the one who threw away 8 years like they meant nothing. It wasn't like that, he said, his voice lower now, pleading. After the miscarriage, you were so distant. You shut me out. The mention of our lost baby hit me like a physical blow. Don't you dare, I hissed. Don't you dare use our baby as an excuse for this. It's not an excuse, it's what happened. You retreated into your work, into yourself. I needed someone who was present, who saw me. And I needed a husband who could honor his vows, I shot back. For better or worse, remember? Not until things get tough and I find someone else. Vanessa, who had been silent during this exchange, finally spoke up. Daniel never said your marriage was over, she said quietly. He told me you had an understanding, that you were staying together for appearances, but were essentially separated. I laughed, a harsh sound that didn't feel like it came from me. Is that what he told you? Well, he lied to you too. Congratulations, you've fallen for a man who lies to everyone in his life. Daniel's face hardened. That's enough, Eliza. You've made your point. We'll talk about this at home. There is no we anymore, Daniel. And that house stopped being my home the moment you betrayed everything it was built on. I turned to go, then paused, looking back at him. By the way, the blender you gave me for my birthday? I left it running with nothing in it. It burned out the motor. Seemed fitting somehow. I walked away, feeling their eyes on my back. The elevator doors opened as if on cue, and I stepped inside. As they closed, I caught a final glimpse of Daniel's face. Shocked, angry, but something else too. Relief, maybe. The burden of his deception finally lifted. In my room, I called Mara. It's done, I said when she answered. I confronted them in the lobby. Oh my God, are you okay? What happened? I recounted the confrontation, my voice surprisingly steady. Do you want me to come get you? She asked when I finished. No, I said, looking around the luxurious hotel room. I've paid for this room. I might as well use it. One last extravagance on my soon-to-be ex-husband's income. Liz. I'm okay, Mara. Really. For the first time in months, I think I actually am okay. Everything's clear now. No more doubts, no more confusion. After we hung up, I ordered a bottle of champagne from room service. When it arrived, I filled a glass and raised it to my reflection in the window. To clarity, I said to myself and drank. The next 6 months passed in a blur of legalities and logistics. I moved out of our house and into a small apartment closer to my office. Daniel didn't fight me on the division of assets, perhaps out of guilt, perhaps because he was already planning his new life with Vanessa. Our divorce was finalized on a rainy Tuesday in October. I sat in my lawyer's office, signing papers that ended 8 years of marriage in a matter of minutes. Congratulations, my lawyer said when it was done. You're officially a free woman.
Free.
Was that what I was? It didn't feel like freedom yet, more like floating in space without a tether. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective. I walked without a destination in mind, eventually finding myself at Millennium Park. The Cloud Gate sculpture, the bean as everyone called it, mirrored the clearing sky and the people moving around it. I stared at my distorted reflection, trying to recognize myself in this new reality. Dr. Eliza Reeves. No longer Mrs. Daniel Reeves. Just me, on my own. My phone buzzed with a text from Mara. All done? All done, I replied. Meet for drinks later? Absolutely. The usual place at 7? I confirmed and continued my walk, feeling lighter with each step. The past months had been hard, moving, dividing possessions, explaining to friends and family what had happened. But I'd survived. More than that, I discovered strengths I hadn't known I possessed. My practice had flourished as I poured more energy into my work. I'd taken on new clients, started a support group for women going through major life transitions, even begun writing a book about resilience in the face of betrayal. I hadn't seen Daniel since that night at the peninsula. Our communication had been through lawyers and emails. I'd heard through mutual friends that he and Vanessa were still together, that they'd moved in together after our divorce proceedings began. I told myself I didn't care, and most days that was true. At 7 p.m., I arrived at Porter's, the wine bar where Mara and I had spent many evenings dissecting my marriage and planning my new life. She was already there, a bottle of my favorite red on the table. To my brave, resilient, officially divorced friend, she said, raising her glass as I sat down. I clinked my glass against hers. To new beginnings. How does it feel? She asked after we'd both taken a sip. Surreal, I admitted. Like I've been climbing a mountain for months and finally reached the summit, only to realize there's a whole range of mountains ahead of me. But you can see the view now, she pointed out, and decide which peak to tackle next. I smiled at her metaphor. True. Though right now, I'm content to just sit and breathe at the top of this one. Any word from the jackass? I shook my head. Radio silence, since the final settlement was agreed upon. Which is fine by me. And, emotionally? Really, how are you? I considered the question seriously, as I'd asked myself the same thing that morning. I'm reconstructing. There are good days and bad days. But the good ones are starting to outnumber the bad. Mara reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you. Not everyone would have handled this with the grace you have. Grace? I confronted my husband and his mistress in a hotel lobby and told him I broke our blender out of spite.
She laughed.
Okay, maybe not always grace.
But strength.
Dignity, when it mattered. We chatted for another hour, finishing the bottle and ordering appetizers. As we were debating whether to get a second bottle or call it a night, the door to the wine bar opened. Daniel walked in. He was alone, dressed in the charcoal suit I'd always liked on him. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on our table. For a moment, he seemed to hesitate. Then he walked directly toward us. Eliza, he said, stopping at our table. I thought that might be you. Daniel. My voice was neutral, giving away nothing of the sudden pounding of my heart. What are you doing here? Client meeting, he said, gesturing vaguely toward the back of the bar. Just wrapped up. I saw you from across the room. Mara was glaring at him with undisguised hostility. We're having a private conversation. I won't intrude, he said quickly. He looked at me, his expression softening. I heard the divorce was finalized today. I confirmed. I wanted to say. He trailed off, seeming to search for words.
I'm sorry, Liz.
For how everything happened. You deserved better. The apology, coming months too late and without Vanessa in sight, felt hollow. But I nodded, acknowledging it. Yes, I did. An awkward silence fell. Daniel shifted his weight from one foot to the other. How are you? I've heard your practice is doing well. It is, I said. I'm doing well, Daniel. Better than I expected to be 6 months ago. He nodded, a flicker of something. Regret? Relief. Crossing his face. I'm glad to hear that. You look good. Happy. Thank you. Another silence. Mara cleared her throat pointedly. I should go, Daniel said. Take care of yourself, Liz. You too, I replied, more out of habit than sincerity. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I did love you. It wasn't all a lie. Before I could respond, he walked away, disappearing into the crowd near the bar. Mara exhaled loudly. The nerve of that man. But I was quiet, processing the encounter. It had been briefer and less emotional than I'd anticipated. No dramatic confrontation, no tearful recriminations. Just two people who had once shared everything, now reduced to awkward small talk in a wine bar. You okay? Mara asked, concern in her voice. Yeah, I said, surprised to find it was true. Actually, I'm fine. Better than fine. Really? I nodded slowly. Seeing him just now, I realized something. He's just a man who made terrible choices. Not a monster, not a hero. Just a flawed human who hurt me badly. And I'm a woman who survived that hurt and is building something new. Mara studied my face. That's remarkably healthy. I laughed. Well, I am a therapist. I should hope I've learned something from all those books and degrees. We decided against a second bottle, settling our bill and stepping out into the night. The air was crisp with early autumn, the stars visible in patches between the city lights. Want to share a cab? Mara asked. Actually, I think I'll walk for a bit, I said. Clear my head. She hugged me tightly. Call me when you get home. As I walked along the river, the city lights reflecting on the water, I thought about the strange journey of the past 6 months. From the breakdown of my car to the breakdown of my marriage, from shock and grief to anger, and finally to this, a quiet acceptance, a readiness to move forward. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. I heard the divorce was finalized. If you need to talk, I'm here. N. Naomi, my colleague. The one I was supposed to have dinner with on the night I confronted Daniel. We'd rescheduled, and over the past few months, our professional relationship had evolved into a friendship. She'd been through her own divorce years before and had become an unexpected source of support and understanding. I hesitated only briefly before responding. Thanks. Actually, I'd like that. Coffee tomorrow. Her reply came quickly. Perfect. 10 a.m. at Intelligentsia. See you there, I texted back. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and continued walking, feeling the rhythm of the city around me. 6 months ago, my world had shattered when my car broke down and I saw my husband with another woman. Tonight, I'd signed papers ending that chapter of my life and had emerged whole, different, certainly, but whole. The future stretched before me, unknown but full of possibility. There would be more challenges, more heartache perhaps, but also joy, growth, new connections. The thought was exhilarating rather than frightening. At the Michigan Avenue Bridge, I stopped and looked up at the buildings towering above me, their windows glowing in the darkness. The city I'd shared with Daniel was becoming my own again, one step at a time. I took a deep breath of the cool night air and began walking again, heading home. Not to the home I'd lost, but to the one I was creating for myself. My steps were steady, my path clear. For the first time in a long time, I was exactly where I needed to be.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.